Stop scrolling. Do not move on to the next video. Do not tell yourself you will come back later. What I am about to say is not something you can afford to ignore. My child, this is the answer you have been asking me for. Not everyone will understand these words. Not everyone was meant to hear them. This moment is not about the crowd. It is not about the thousands of other people scrolling through their screens right now. This is about you and me. Yes, you. I know exactly where you are as you listen to this. I know what has been weighing on your heart. I know the questions you have carried into another sleepless night. I know the silent conversations you have had with me when no one else was around to hear them. And that is why I brought you here. You may think you found this message by accident. You may think this is just another video appearing on your screen. But my child, there are no accidents when it comes to my timing. Long before you pressed play, I knew this moment would happen. Long before you felt the frustration, confusion, and weariness that have followed you lately, I saw this exact day. I heard every prayer you thought went unanswered. I heard every whispered, "Why?" I heard every tear-filled, "When?" I heard every moment when you wondered if I was still listening. And today, I need you to hear me clearly. I was listening the entire time. The reason you have felt restless lately is because something inside your spirit has been searching for understanding. You have been looking at your life and trying to make sense of what did not happen. Doors closed. Plans changed. Expectations crumbled. You asked me for direction, but all you seemed to receive was silence. You thought my silence meant absence. You thought my silence meant rejection. You thought my silence meant I had forgotten about you. But none of those things are true. In the next few moments, I am going to show you something that will change the way you see the last few years of your life. What looked like delay was not delay. What looked like disappointment was not the end of your story. What looked like silence was actually preparation. Stay with me now. Do not rush ahead, because what I am about to reveal will explain more than you realize. My child, one of the greatest struggles you have faced is trying to understand why things did not happen when you thought they would. You prayed, you believed, you waited, and yet the answer seemed delayed. You watched opportunities disappear. You watched doors close that you were certain would open. You made plans, only to see them fall apart in your hands. More than once, you looked toward heaven and quietly wondered, why is everything taking so long? From where you stood, it looked like delay. From where I stood, it was preparation. There is a difference. You were looking at the calendar. I was looking at your future. You were focused on the next step. I was protecting the entire journey. Many times, you asked me to move quickly because you could only see the immediate discomfort. You wanted relief from the uncertainty. You wanted answers that would calm your fears. You wanted clarity about where your life was going. But my child, had I given you everything you asked for the moment you asked for it, some of those blessings would have become burdens. You believed you were ready because your desire was strong. But readiness is not measured by desire alone. Readiness is measured by wisdom, by maturity, by timing, by what your heart can safely carry. There were seasons when you were asking for open doors while I was still strengthening the foundation beneath your feet. You wanted the next chapter, but I was still teaching you lessons that would keep you standing once you arrived there. Had those lessons been skipped, the very thing you prayed for could have become the thing that overwhelmed you. You call it waiting. I call it building. You call it delay. I call it preparation. Think about how much you have changed during the last few years. The person listening to me right now is not the same person you used to be. You have endured disappointments you never expected. You have survived seasons that nearly broke your confidence. You have learned things about yourself that comfort never could have taught you. You have gained strength that only struggle can develop. Even though it was painful, none of it was wasted. Not one tear, not one disappointment, not one unanswered prayer. While you were asking me to change your circumstances, I was transforming you. And that transformation matters more than you realize, because the blessing you are praying for is not simply connected to where you are going. It is connected to who you are becoming. The future I have prepared for you requires a version of you that did not exist yet. That is why I waited. Not to punish you, not to ignore you, not because I forgot you. I waited because I love you too much to give you something before the proper season. Love protects what it prepares. Love does not rush what can be damaged by arriving too soon. And there is something else I need you to understand. Some of the closed doors that caused you the greatest pain were never meant to be part of your story. You cried over opportunities that I could already see would harm you. You mourned endings that were actually acts of protection. You called certain moments failures because you could not yet see what I was preventing. But I saw it all. I saw the roads ahead. I saw the consequences you could not see. I saw what would have happened if I had allowed certain things to remain. And because I love you, I closed doors that you would have left open. Because I love you, I interrupted plans that would have taken you in the wrong direction. Because I love you, I protected a future you could not yet imagine. And what I protected you from is far greater than what you lost. But there is one thing I have not told you yet. There is one reason certain doors had to close that you still do not fully understand. And when you see it, everything will begin to make sense. My child, there are things I protected you from that you never saw. And because you never saw them, you never knew how often my hand was covering your life. You remember the doors that closed, but you do not remember the disasters that never reached you. You remember the opportunities that slipped away, but you do not know what would have happened if they had stayed. Many times, you stood in disappointment while I stood in protection. You looked at a closed door and saw rejection. I looked at the same door and saw danger. You looked at a broken relationship and saw loss. I looked at it and saw rescue. You looked at a delayed answer and saw silence. I looked at it and saw mercy. My child, not everything that leaves your life is a punishment. Not every closed door is a setback. Not every disappointment is a defeat. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually redirection. There were people you wanted to keep in your life who were never meant to walk into your future. You could not see what was hidden beneath the surface. You could not see the wounds they would create, the distractions they would become, or the ways they would slowly pull you away from the purpose I was preparing for you. But I could see it. I see the beginning and the end at the same time. I see what your eyes cannot see. That is why I closed certain doors even when it hurt. That is why I allowed some relationships to end even when you begged me to save them. That is why certain plans fell apart even after you worked so hard to make them succeed. You thought I was taking something from you. In reality, I was preserving something for you. There were paths you desperately wanted to walk that would have led to exhaustion. There were opportunities you thought would make you happy that would have left you empty. There were answers you wanted immediately that would have created problems you were not prepared to handle. My child, trust me when I tell you this. You have no idea how many battles were fought on your behalf without your knowledge. How many dangers were removed before they ever reached you. How many mistakes were prevented. How many wrong turns were interrupted. You often measure my faithfulness by what I give, but sometimes my faithfulness is revealed in what I prevent. Sometimes my greatest blessings arrive disguised as closed doors. Sometimes my greatest acts of love look like unanswered prayers. I know that is difficult to understand when your heart is hurting. I know it is hard to celebrate what you never received. But one day you will look back and realize that some of the things you cried over would have become some of your greatest regrets. And when that day comes, you will understand that I was never withholding good from you. I was protecting the good I had already planned for you. But protection was only part of what I was doing. While I was guarding you from what could harm you, something else was happening that you could not see. Something much deeper. Something that was quietly changing your life from the inside out. Because while you were waiting for me to move around you, I was already moving within you, and that changes everything. My child, one of the greatest misunderstandings you have carried is believing that nothing was happening while you were waiting. Because you could not see movement, you assumed there was no progress. Because you could not see results, you assumed there was no work. Because you could not see change around you, you assumed I was doing nothing. But hear me carefully now. While you were waiting, I was working. Not for a moment did I stop. Not for a single day did I forget you. Not once did I lose sight of the promises I placed in your heart. The problem was never my activity. The problem was that most of my work was happening where your eyes could not see. My child, a seed does not break through the surface the day it is planted. For a season, everything appears unchanged. The ground looks exactly the same. Nothing seems different. Nothing seems to be growing. But beneath the surface, life is already forming. Roots are spreading. Strength is developing. Preparation is taking place. And that is exactly what was happening in your life. You kept looking for visible signs. I was building invisible foundations. You wanted immediate evidence. I was creating lasting strength. You wanted quick answers. I was preparing deeper wisdom. What you called a stagnant season was actually a growing season. What you called a silent season was actually a construction season. What you called a wasted season was one of the most important seasons of your life, because there were things inside you that needed to change before the things around you could change. I had to teach you how to trust when you did not have all the answers. I had to teach you how to keep moving when certainty was unavailable. I had to teach you how to find peace without depending on perfect circumstances. Those lessons cannot be learned in comfort. They are learned in waiting. And I know the waiting was difficult. I know there were moments when frustration settled into your heart. Moments when you wondered if your prayers were reaching heaven. Moments when you questioned whether anything would ever change. But even during those moments, I was closer than you realized. I was working through every disappointment. I was working through every delay. I was working through every unanswered question. Nothing was wasted. Not the tears, not the confusion, not the loneliness, not the uncertainty. Every experience was shaping something within you, because the greatest change was never meant to happen around you first. It was meant to happen inside you. You were becoming stronger, wiser, more compassionate, more resilient, more dependent on me. You thought you were simply surviving, but you were being transformed. The version of you that exists today carries a depth you did not have before. You understand things now that you could not understand then. You see life differently now. You pray differently now. You listen differently now. And that transformation is part of the answer you have been asking for. Because the blessing I have prepared for you requires the person you have become through this process. If I had moved too soon, you would have missed the growth. If I had answered too quickly, you would have missed the wisdom. If I had removed every struggle immediately, you would have missed the strength that struggle produced. Now do you see why I could not rush this season? I was not delaying your future. I was preparing you for it. And there is something even more important I need you to understand. The greatest work I have been doing is not just building your future. It is healing parts of your heart that no one else could see. Wounds you tried to ignore. Pain you learned to hide. Disappointments you never fully released. Because before I could bring you into the next chapter, I had to heal what the previous chapters left behind. My child, there are wounds you carried for so long that you stopped noticing their weight. You learned how to function with them. You learned how to smile around them. You learned how to keep moving while they quietly lived inside your heart. But I saw them. I saw the disappointment you never fully recovered from. I saw the rejection you told yourself no longer mattered. I saw the betrayal you tried to forgive while secretly carrying its pain. I saw every moment when someone broke your trust and left you wondering whether it was safe to open your heart again. You became stronger on the outside, but deep inside, parts of your heart remained wounded. And my child, before I could bring you into the next season of your life, I had to heal those hidden places. Because unhealed pain has a way of following people into their future. A wound that is ignored does not disappear. It influences decisions. It affects relationships. It shapes expectations. It whispers fear into moments that should be filled with faith. Many times you prayed for me to change your circumstances, but the deeper need was healing. Because if I had given you everything you wanted while your heart was still carrying those wounds, you would have brought your pain into your blessing. You would have expected betrayal where there was loyalty. You would have expected loss where there was opportunity. You would have expected disappointment where there was hope. The blessing would have arrived, but the wounds would have prevented you from fully receiving it. That is why I slowed things down. Not because I was denying you, because I was restoring you. I know there were moments when old memories suddenly resurfaced. Moments when emotions you thought were gone came back unexpectedly. Moments when you found yourself grieving things that happened years ago. You wondered why. You thought perhaps you were moving backward. But you were not moving backward. You were healing. Healing often brings hidden pain to the surface before it removes its power. The things you buried needed light. The things you avoided needed attention. The things you tried to outrun needed restoration. And I was walking with you through every step of that process. I was teaching you that your past does not define your future. I was teaching you that what happened to you is not who you are. I was teaching you that broken experiences do not determine your worth. My child, there are things others said about you that were never true. There are labels you accepted that I never gave you. There are lies you believed simply because you heard them long enough. Some people made you feel unimportant. Some made you feel unwanted. Some made you question your value, but their words were never your identity. My voice is, and I have been patiently replacing those lies with truth. Not through pressure, not through condemnation, but through love. Because love heals what fear cannot. Love restores what shame cannot. Love reaches places that human effort cannot touch. That is what I have been doing in your life. Quietly, patiently, faithfully, even when you could not see it. And now, something remarkable has begun to happen. The person who once needed constant reassurance is becoming stronger. The person who once feared every setback is learning trust. The person who once saw only disappointment is beginning to recognize purpose. You are changing, my child, not because life became easier, but because healing is making you stronger. There is a version of you that existed a few years ago that no longer exists today. A version shaped by fear, a version controlled by old wounds, a version limited by old pain. That version is fading, and the person emerging from this season is stronger than you realize, which is exactly why the next chapter can finally begin. My child, I need you to see something that you have been overlooking. You keep focusing on what has not happened yet. You keep looking at what is still missing. You keep measuring your life by the prayers that have not been answered. But today, I want you to look at something different. Look at who you have become, because you are not the same person you were when this journey began. There was a time when every setback felt like the end. Every disappointment felt permanent. Every closed door felt like proof that something was wrong. You carried fear more easily then. You doubted yourself more quickly then. You allowed the opinions of others to shape how you saw yourself. But look at you now. You have survived things you once believed would destroy you. You have walked through seasons that tested every part of your faith. You have faced uncertainty, loss, confusion, and delay. And yet you are still here. You may feel tired. You may still have questions. You may still be waiting for certain answers. But you are standing. And that matters more than you realize. The old version of you would have given up. The old version of you would have allowed disappointment to become bitterness. The old version of you would have mistaken temporary pain for permanent defeat. But something has changed. You have learned endurance. You have learned patience. You have learned how to keep trusting even when understanding does not come immediately. Those lessons were not accidental. They were part of your preparation. My child, growth often happens so gradually that you do not recognize it. Day by day, I have been shaping your character. Moment by moment, I have been strengthening your spirit. Challenge by challenge, I have been building resilience within you. And because the process was gradual, you sometimes fail to see how far you have come. But I see it. I see the prayers you pray now. They are deeper. I see the way you respond to difficulty now. There is more wisdom, more calm, more perspective. I see the compassion that has grown inside you because of the pain you have endured. I see the humility that developed through seasons of waiting. I see the strength that emerged from battles nobody else knew you were fighting. None of that existed in the same way before. You have changed, not into a perfect person, but into a stronger one. Not into someone who never struggles, but into someone who knows where to turn when struggle comes. And that transformation is more valuable than you know, because where I am leading you next requires the person you are becoming now. The future I prepared for you does not need the fearful version of you. It does not need the wounded version of you. It does not need the version of you that constantly doubts your worth. It requires someone who has been refined by experience, someone who has learned trust, someone who has learned perseverance, someone who understands that faith is not built during easy seasons alone. That person is emerging right now. That person is you. So stop speaking to yourself as if you are still trapped in your past. Stop defining yourself by old failures. Stop measuring yourself by old wounds. Those chapters helped shape you, but they do not define you. You are not who you were. You have grown. You have healed. You have matured. And because of that, there is something important you must understand. The season ahead of you will not look like the season behind you. The waiting has not been meaningless. The preparation has not been wasted. The healing has not been unnecessary. Everything has been leading to this moment, because the season you have been praying for is closer than you think, closer than it appears, closer than you dare to believe. And now, I need to tell you why the next season cannot be stopped. My child, I know there were days when you almost stopped expecting anything to change. You became so familiar with waiting that waiting began to feel normal. You became so accustomed to disappointment that hope started to feel risky. You protected your heart by lowering your expectations. You told yourself not to get too excited, not to believe too much, not to hope too deeply, because you did not want to be hurt again. I understand why you felt that way. You have walked through seasons that tested your patience. You have stood in places where answers seemed far away. You have carried questions longer than you ever expected. But hear me clearly now. The season you have been praying for is approaching, not because you earned it, not because you became perfect, not because you finally figured everything out. It is approaching because the preparation is accomplishing its purpose. A farmer does not plant a seed and dig it up every day to check its progress. Growth happens beneath the surface first. Then one day, what was invisible becomes visible. What was hidden begins to emerge. What was developing in secret can no longer remain unseen. That is where many of you are right now. You have spent so much time looking at the surface that you almost missed what was happening underneath. But heaven has not been idle. I have been aligning things you cannot yet see. I have been opening paths before you arrive at them. I have been arranging connections, opportunities, and moments that will make sense when the timing is right. Even now, while you listen to these words, there are things moving in your life that you know nothing about. Conversations are happening. Doors are being prepared. Circumstances are shifting, not because of luck, not because of coincidence, but because I am faithful to complete what I begin. My child, I need you to stop interpreting your present season as the final chapter. You are standing in a transition, not a conclusion. What feels unfinished is not forgotten. What feels delayed is not abandoned. What feels impossible is not beyond my reach. You have spent enough time looking backward, enough time analyzing old disappointments, enough time asking why certain things happened. Now I want you to begin looking forward, not with pressure, not with anxiety, but with expectation, because expectation is the language of faith. Faith does not deny difficulty. Faith simply refuses to believe that difficulty has the final word. The future I have prepared for you may not arrive exactly how you imagined it. It may not look like the picture you created in your mind, but it will carry something better than your own expectations. It will carry my purpose, and my purpose is always greater than what you can currently see. There are blessings coming that are measured by money, peace that circumstances cannot steal, wisdom that confusion cannot shake, relationships built on truth, opportunities connected to purpose, clarity where there was once uncertainty, strength where there was once fear. These are the things I have been preparing. These are the things I have been building. These are the things that survive when temporary excitement fades. So do not lose heart now. Do not quit on the edge of a breakthrough. Do not allow yesterday's disappointments to convince you that tomorrow will look the same. You have come too far. You have grown too much. You have survived too many battles to stop believing now. Something is changing. Perhaps not all at once. Perhaps not in the dramatic way you expect. But change is happening. The season ahead will require a different version of you. A version that trusts more deeply. A version that walks more confidently. A version that is no longer controlled by fear. Yet before that season fully arrives, there is one thing I need you to do. One thing that many people struggle to release. One thing that quietly keeps them tied to old seasons long after I have called them forward. Because I cannot fill hands that refuse to let go. And what I am about to bring into your life requires room to receive it. My child, There is a reason some people remain stuck even after the door to a new season has opened. It is not because I failed to provide a way forward. It is because they continue reaching for what I already removed. They keep looking behind them while I am calling them ahead. They keep mourning what ended while I am preparing what is next. And if you are honest with yourself, there may still be things you are holding on to that no longer belong in your future. Not because they were all bad, not because they never mattered, but because their season has ended. My child, I know how difficult letting go can be. I know how easy it is to revisit old memories, to replay old conversations, to wonder what might have happened if things had gone differently. Sometimes you revisit old disappointments so often that they begin to feel more real than the future standing in front of you. You examine old wounds, old mistakes, old failures, and without realizing it, you allow yesterday to occupy space that belongs to tomorrow. But hear me carefully. You cannot fully receive what is ahead while constantly returning to what is behind. Some of you are still carrying guilt that I already forgave. You continue condemning yourself for mistakes that I already covered with grace. You keep replaying moments that I have already redeemed. You speak about yourself as though your worst chapter is still your identity. My child, that chapter may be part of your story, but it is not your name. You are not defined by your failures. You are not defined by your regrets. You are not defined by the seasons when you stumbled. You are defined by my love and my purpose for your life. Others are holding on to people they were never meant to follow into the next season. You miss who they were. You miss what you shared. You miss what you hoped the relationship would become. And because of that, you keep looking backward. You keep waiting for what has already ended to return. Meanwhile, the future stands patiently in front of you, waiting for your attention. My child, not everything that leaves is meant to come back. Some things leave because their assignment in your life is complete. Some doors close because keeping them open would prevent you from walking through the right one. Some endings are not punishments. They are transitions. And transitions require trust. I know there are questions you still have. Questions that may never be answered the way you expect. But healing does not always come from understanding everything. Sometimes healing comes from trusting me with what you do not understand. There are also dreams you need to release. Not because I want less for you, but because some dreams were built from limited vision. You saw one possibility. I saw many. You imagined one path. I prepared something greater than you could see. Do not mistake surrender for loss. Surrender is often the doorway to something better. Every season of growth requires a release. A tree cannot hold dead leaves forever and continue growing. A traveler cannot move forward while refusing to let go of unnecessary weight. And your heart cannot fully embrace the future while remaining attached to everything from the past. So today, I am asking you to trust me enough to release what I have already removed. Release the guilt. Release the regret. Release the old labels. Release the fear of what happened before. Release the relationships that no longer belong in your future. Release the disappointment that has been speaking louder than hope. You do not need to carry those things anymore. They serve their purpose. The lesson remains. The growth remains. The wisdom remains. But the weight does not have to remain. Because where I am leading you next requires freedom. It requires space. It requires a heart that is willing to receive. And my child, the moment you stop clinging to what I have already taken away, you will begin to recognize something extraordinary. You are standing closer to your new season than you realize. Closer than you have ever been before. And now, I want to show you why every step of this journey has been leading to this very moment. My child, if you could see your life the way I see it, you would understand that nothing has been random. Not the waiting, not the struggles, not the tears, not the detours, not even the moments that seemed completely meaningless. Every season has been connected. Every lesson has had a purpose. Every challenge has been shaping you for something greater than you could see at the time. And now, you are standing in a moment that many of those experiences were preparing you for. This is why I have been asking you to trust me. This is why I have been teaching you patience. This is why I have been healing your heart. This is why I have been removing what no longer belongs in your life. Because the next chapter requires a different version of you. Not the fearful version, not the wounded version, not the version that constantly questions whether I am with you. It requires the stronger version that emerged from the fire, the wiser version that learned through waiting, the deeper version that discovered faith when circumstances offered no guarantees. Look at how far you have come. There was a time when you thought you would never recover, yet you did. There was a time when you thought the pain would never end, yet you survived. There was a time when you thought the door that closed would ruin your future, yet here you are, still standing, still believing, still moving forward. My child, never underestimate what that means. You survived battles that nobody knew about. You carried burdens that others could not see. You fought through discouragement, loneliness, uncertainty, and disappointment. And despite everything, you did not quit. You may have stumbled. You may have doubted. You may have cried more times than anyone realizes. But you kept going. And that matters, because perseverance has been producing something inside you that comfort never could. Listen to me carefully. You survived. You endured. You learned. You grew. You healed. You stayed. You trusted. And you are still here. That is not weakness. That is strength. That is evidence that my hand has been upon your life even during seasons when you could not recognize it. Many people focus only on the destination. I focus on who you become during the journey, and who you are becoming is beautiful. You are developing a faith that is not dependent on perfect circumstances. You are developing a peace that does not disappear when challenges arise. You are developing a confidence rooted in my presence rather than temporary success. These are gifts that cannot be purchased. They can only be developed through experience. That is why this season has been so important. And now, I want you to stop viewing your past as proof that life is against you. Instead, begin seeing it as evidence that I have been preparing you all along. The delays prepared you. The disappointments prepared you. The healing prepared you. The waiting prepared you. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was forgotten. Nothing was outside my awareness. Every step has been leading here, to this moment, to this realization, to this new season that is beginning to unfold before you. And before we finish, there is one final truth I need you to carry in your heart, a truth that will explain everything we have talked about today. Because through every season, every battle, every delay, and every victory, there is one thing that has never changed. I have never left you. My child, as we come to the end of this message, I want you to remember one thing above everything else. I never left you. Not when the door closed, not when the relationship ended, not when the prayer seemed unanswered, not when you sat alone wondering if anyone understood what you were carrying. I was there. I was there during the nights when tears fell and no one knew. I was there during the mornings when you forced yourself to keep going even though your heart felt heavy. I was there when fear whispered that nothing would ever change. I was there when disappointment tried to convince you that your future had been lost. And I am still here now. My child, so much of your pain came from believing that my silence meant my absence. But silence and absence are not the same thing. A teacher can be silent during a test and still be present. A builder can work behind walls before anyone sees the finished structure. And I have been working in ways you could not yet understand. Every step of this journey has carried my fingerprints. When you were being protected, I was there. When you were being prepared, I was there. When you were being healed, I was there. When you were learning to trust, I was there. Even when you could not feel, my presence never left you. There were moments when you felt forgotten, but I never forgot you. There were moments when you felt unseen, but I never stopped seeing you. There were moments when you felt abandoned, but I never abandoned you. My child, look at your life. You have made it through things that should have broken you. You have survived seasons that once seemed impossible. You have come farther than you realize. That was not an accident. That was not luck. That was my faithfulness carrying you one step at a time. So stop measuring your future by your past disappointments. Stop measuring my love by temporary circumstances. Stop believing that a delayed answer means a denied purpose. I am still writing your story. The chapter you are standing in today is not the final chapter. There is more ahead, more growth, more healing, more peace, more purpose. And when you look back one day, you will see that even in the seasons that made the least sense, I was guiding you toward something greater. So lift your head. Take another step forward. Trust me with what you cannot yet see, because I have not brought you this far to leave you now. I was with you then. I am with you now, and I will be with you in every chapter that is still to come. You were never alone, and you never will be. Before you leave, I want you to do something important. If this message spoke directly to your heart, if you believe God brought you here at exactly the right moment, type these words in the comments. Lord, I trust your timing. Let that be your declaration of faith today. Not faith because you have all the answers. Not faith because everything is already perfect. But faith because you believe God is still working, even when you cannot see it. And if this message encouraged you, tell us where you're watching from and which part touched your heart the most. Your testimony may be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Also, take a moment to share this message with a friend, family member, or anyone who feels forgotten, discouraged, or tired of waiting. You never know how God might use a simple act of sharing to reach someone who desperately needs hope. And if you want more messages like this, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. Remember, the delay was not denial. The waiting was not wasted. The silence was not absence. God has seen every tear, heard every prayer, and guided every step. Trust Him. Keep believing. Keep moving forward. Your story is not over, and your next chapter may be closer than you think. God bless you.